back to Still New York. We are so excited to have you today. I'm your host, Jana Bernard, and this is my co-host.
I'm Alex Alpert.
And we are so excited to be doing this series and to be showing you the behind-the-scenes look of how the arts are making an epic comeback in New York City.
So Jana, I think why don't we start it off with our New York City fun fact. I'm going to go first because I got one already.
Hit me.
It's a shocking fact. Did you know that the Empire State Building is struck on average 23 times by lightning?
Ugh, bad day at the office. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oof, that sucks.
What you got?
All right. I take your struck by lightning fact and I raise you.
Whoa.
Did you know that New Yorkers drink 7 times as much coffee as other cities?
That is a shocking fact, but I'm not too surprised. I'm currently contributing to that statistic right now. I'm on cup number 7 for the day.
Oh, you take it black, or you're like a latte kind of person?
I'm a latte kind of person. Give me that milk, give me that sugar. Keeps me going.
Yep. And apparently it keeps New York going too.
Hey.
Speaking of keeping New York going, we are so excited to be going on to our next interview with our next guest, who we had such an incredible interview with.
So we just got done speaking with Ariel Viera. He's the host of the engaging show, The Urbanist, where he discusses the hidden gems of New York City.
So make sure you grab your cup of coffee, or if you're a New Yorker, grab 7 of them, pull up a seat, join us on this next episode, and we are still
New York.
Hello, Ariel. So we're so happy to have you speaking with us today. We know that you're the host of the engaging show Urbanist, where you discuss the hidden gems of New York City, and that the Urbanist goes live twice per week on Facebook Live, or sometimes more. I think our first question to you is, what sparked the creative inspiration for covering the history and the hidden gems of different neighborhoods?
Yeah, that's a great question. Happy to be on the show. For me, I used to always love walking around the city and kind of just admire the architecture, admire the neighborhoods and the food. And ironically enough, I would have a tough time convincing my friends to join me for 4 or 5 hour walks. So I decided to do it live video. Well, first I decided to do it on vlog, recorded video, but I found out that was pretty kind of awkward. It's very hard to like speak to a camera alone in the middle of the street. But at that same time, this was 2016, live video came out on Facebook specifically, and is becoming popular in a few other platforms. And I saw that I can do a video, not need to edit it, and I have people watching along with me. So that sparked the original passion for doing live video stories. Originally, I launched the Facebook Live programming for Curbed, which was a city and design and architecture blog, part of Vox Media.
Very cool, very cool.
Also, yeah, you just kind of rolled with the technology that worked out really well, because the live format is huge now. You know, obviously Instagram Live is really big off of Facebook Live, and it's great that the technology is kind of developing as you are too. And you're able to stay on top of it.
Right. I mean, it's only beginning, because most of the popular streaming channels are either sit-down chats or game streaming. It's now that walking streaming is becoming very popular.
So Ariel, going around live streaming New York City, I'm sure you've seen your fair share of interesting things. Do you have any wild experiences you want to share with us?
Well, the beautiful thing about New York City is that there's constantly things going on, even amidst a global pandemic. One of the best things that has happened in the past few months were random buskers, running into buskers. So one time I did a late night ferry ride from Brooklyn to Manhattan and end up at Wall Street. And I heard violin in the distance. And I found it hard to believe, because there's not that many buskers in Wall Street. And as I approached it, there was a busker right in front of Federal Hall playing violin, and he was playing pop covers in violin. And it was absolutely mind-blowing. The echo, the ambiance, it was just absolutely magical. Another experience I had in the past few months was in Williamsburg, I was walking around and I spontaneously, while a live video, popped into a live DJ party outdoors. Everyone was socially distant because this was in like late summer. Everyone was socially distant, and yet there was a full-on DJ party outdoors, and with the most beautiful sunset right behind him because it was right by the waterfront. So these instances happen a lot more often than I can even count, because that's the beauty about New York City, is that somehow the way that the city's built and the people in it just is primed for these chance encounters.
Yeah, anything can happen in a New York minute, you know?
Yeah.
That's what they
Right.
say. And speaking of the beauty of how New York is built, you had mentioned the building behind you earlier. Can you tell us a little bit about that building? And then also, can you tell us maybe one or two other places or where we should go visit for architecture after we go hit those awesome outdoor dining spots you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I mean, New York City is filled with amazing architecture. Of course, you can go to more touristy places, which is awesome. Like here, this is the first Art Deco building in all of New York City, the Radiator Building. It's more famous for, it looks like a gigantic radiator, and they did that on purpose. It's black, and it's not so well lit today, but usually you can see the gold glistening at night. And also the other cool thing is this was featured in probably one of the best paintings of a skyscraper ever. It was made by Georgia O'Keeffe, so check it out. But of course, you have the Chrysler Building also right next to this structure. So you have a lot of structures here in Midtown Manhattan. But I think one of the more magical places for architecture is around Madison Square Park. Oh, if you go to Madison Square Park at night with the life insurance building, the Met Life Insurance Building, and the New York Life Insurance Building with those gold tops, oh, they look so magical. It almost feels like you are in the mishmash of a European meets New York City. Of course, also with the Flatiron Building. So there's just a wonderful collection of historical architecture right there in that one park.
And you can hit the Shake Shack and go to the Lego store.
You can, yes, and easily as well.
Just head right
Love that
to the
area.
Shake Shack.
Right. And okay, so I'll give you one off the beaten path place. One place that recently really blew me away was walking along Washington Avenue in Clinton Hill, which is not at all in the tourist guidebooks, and not really in the radar for most New Yorkers, unless if you're local to that neighborhood. But it has some gorgeous brownstone architecture and some historic mansions built in the late 1800s. Probably one of the more mind-blowing architectural adventures I've had recently.
Wow, I have not had any recent mind-blowing architectural adventures, so I will definitely have to check those out.
Right.
Yeah, you brought up the pandemic. I'm sure that's affected many facets of what you do. How have you kind of coped with it, or, been able to format your media to roll with it? How's that been?
Yeah, so initially when the pandemic hit, we were in lockdown, or New York City called it pause specifically. So it was a bit, kind of taboo to walk around. So I couldn't really do walking videos, but I still maintained the show. So I did more kind of lecture style videos at home about New York City history. However, quickly I realized, wait a minute, we could still drive around during the pandemic. So rather than just walk around, I decided to just do driving videos. So luckily my father helped me drive around. So he was at the helm driving it, and I was at the passenger seat doing the live video. And we did like videos through different neighborhoods and different streets. Also, there was no traffic, so it was the perfect time to do a car tour.
Yeah, and when else can you get no traffic in New York City? You gotta take advantage of that.
Right, so I did like Broadway, the very first video, and it was almost a year today. It was Broadway from the very north, uptown Manhattan, Inwood, all the way to the very tip to Bowling Green. It only took me about 40 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And I imagine the content, that you're focusing on when you're driving around is obviously different. It's a very different city that you're looking at this year than in the past.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about the pandemic is that as it kept going through, there was a huge appetite not for travel content in the classic like Instagrammer or blogger kind of way, or YouTuber kind of way, saying like 12 best things to do in New York City, or the best itinerary for a 2-day trip. But instead, people just wanted to vicariously travel because they weren't going to travel anytime soon. So they rather just kind of have a different type of content, which was more being there, more learning about the history, more learning about the architecture. So there was a little bit of a golden boom, a golden age, and still going on, of live streaming a walk through the city, because people still have little prospects to travel, so they just want to be here instead.
That's incredible. And the way that you've been able to adapt your content in order to fit this digital landscape is so inspirational. What would your advice be to, say, someone who's a young creative who's looking to make their own original digital content like you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, first of all, talk about anything or make content of anything you nerd out about, which sounds easier said than done, because a lot of people are afraid to kind of nerd out about the things they really feel nerdy about, because, friends might not be so interested. Like if I were to start nerding out to all my friends about architecture, there would be some that would be really into it, but some of them would be like, okay, yeah, I get the idea. This is a building. All right. Which is okay. That's understandable. But when it comes to making content, you got to do that, because if you don't do that, it's not going to be sustainable over the long time. So especially when it comes to New York City, if you're like a musician, be sure you're playing the music that you want to play in the city you want to play in. So I would say that's number one. But number two is go with the flow when it comes to platform. So Instagram probably wasn't the best thing in the past year because it wasn't booming, because there was not that much aspirational content that people were consuming. People didn't want to see some person with flowing skirts looking at the sunset in Bali, because they'll be jealous that they can't go themselves. But instead, platforms like live streaming took off because it was a way to interact with someone vicariously, and you feel like you're there with them. You're having a longer form conversation. It doesn't feel like you're just watching some host that you have no connection to.
Right.
Sure.
Right. And I think that's part of the joy of and part of the thing I think a lot of actors, myself included, especially miss about like live theater, is you get that element of feeling like you are live in the story with those people. And I think what you've been able to do that's so incredible is you've been able to bring the story to people in real time through your multi-streaming digital content.
Yeah, and I've noticed actors have like the prime opportunity to bring it back to the days of radio plays, because Orson Welles, for example, used to do radio plays in a studio with a few actors, and that would be a very entertaining piece of hour-to-hour content. I've seen a few actors do that, but not that many. I wish more would do it, because I think more people could use, a table reading on Zoom or live video.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that live streaming that you're doing is sort of that the first step into getting into, I guess, what you could say like VR, like that technology. Have you considered that with what you do?
Yeah, so I started making 360 videos 3 years ago. So I'm one of the first content creators to really start doing it. And basically everything I do is kind of preemptively learning how to best immerse people into a travel experience before the big VR boom, which is going to inevitably happen at some point, maybe next 5 years or maybe in 10 years, but it's going to happen. And with the VR boom, that means you can technically travel for, say, $5 rather than travel for 100 or 300 or 400 or more. So there might be a big appetite for travel content in VR, and I think that's going to only increase moving forward.
So you're really ahead of the curve that way, and that's great. You're developing that content now.
Yeah, I mean, right now, recently collaborating with a company called Live Cinema UK, and the UK government is actually subsidizing educational travel content. So they want more VR content because they realize that people want to sometimes travel to a city before they actually pay the money for a flight and for a hotel. And I think the same thing applies to New York City, which is a grand, beautiful city. But sometimes people are a little bit more nervous to spend a good portion of their salary to travel to New York. So they might need a little bit more reassurance of the neighborhoods that they can visit, the attractions they can see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think our next question for you is, so normally you do these incredible walking tours of the city, and sometimes you do them in person. Now you've adapted to virtual. How could somebody book a virtual tour with you, or how could they book an in-person tour? And are you doing any in-person tours as of now?
Yeah, so to preface, I've always been the live streamer first. Tours have always been like a bonus gig that I offer, a bonus offering. So yeah, I do in-person tours still, and mostly all the topics I cover is outdoors. So that takes away one issue. So I do offer like customized private tours for any customized to your interest and to your curiosity. So if you want to see a specific neighborhood, for example, someone last year asked me to cover the history of fashion in New York City, which sounds very abstract, but I ended up finding exactly the neighborhood to do it, which was the Garment District, and it was really fun. But I've also been recently offering virtual tours, so people are more comfortable seeing a tour either on a live stream where they can share with as many friends as they want to, a private live stream, or a Zoom meeting where they have more face-to-face connection with me. I do offer that as well, and same thing, customized to your interest. So 1 to 2 hours of going around the city, wherever you want to go. We'll cover the history, we'll cover the architecture, we'll cover the food.
That sounds incredible. I can't wait for us to book our first tour with you, Ariel.
Yeah, definitely. The way to do it, you go directly to my site, urbanist.live/tours. That's how one does it.
So speaking of the food tours, how have you seen the restaurant industry in that side of New York City? Obviously, it's changed quite a bit. Has that affected your food tours during the pandemic?
Yeah, so my heart goes out to anyone who has suffered with the pandemic, and I know many artists as well here in New York City has suffered with the pandemic. But for me as a live streamer, there has been many silver linings, and one of them has been food, ironically, because one of the toughest things as a live streamer that does a lot of videos that are spontaneous, walking around the neighborhood, is I like spontaneously going to restaurants or eateries. And it's a bit tough sometimes if they're all indoors and very cramped seating, we're all tightly packed, and it's weird for me alone to talk to a camera. It's just a very awkward experience. Sometimes it works, most times it doesn't. So it was a blessing in disguise to have a lot of outdoor seating. Finally, I have access to all these different restaurants, and I could just easily sit down and continue doing my show. So the past few months, I've been able to incorporate a lot more food into my longer live videos. I actually am only a block away from a Michelin star rated restaurant. I was able to walk into it spontaneously because they have outdoor seating, and there's not that many people here buying from a 2 Michelin star restaurant. So yeah.
That's
Silver lining indeed. Wow.
That actually feeds right into our next question, which is, what are some of the outdoor dining venues that you recommend now, or some of the hidden gems that are some of your favorite outdoor dining restaurants for more COVID safe eating?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really love the outdoor places that, of course, have heating and are more spaced out. So I would recommend Gabrielle Caruth here in Bryant Park if you want really fancy dining. It's very cozy, and they have it well heated outdoors. The Smith in Flatiron and also in Lincoln Center. Cue the sirens. They're in New York. That's how you know this is not a green screen.
Exactly.
Right. Ours isn't either.
Yeah, no.
right.
We're just in different parts of the city, and it's darker in one part and lighter in the other.
You have a great view from Williamsburg.
Yeah.
But the Smith, both in Flatiron and in Lincoln Square, Lincoln Center, is amazing because they have like so much ample seating and very strong heaters. It's wonderful. And there's a coffee shop in the East Village. It's one of the few coffee shops that has outdoor heating. It's just a normal coffee shop. I forgot the name. It's on 6th Street and 2nd Avenue. I forgot the name, but I recommend go to that.
You're making me very hungry right now.
Yes, I know.
I want to go run to one of these restaurants right now. So I think we'll have to wrap it up so that I can go right now, run back to New York, eat outdoors. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to have had you on the show and for you to share your expertise with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much. I hope we get New York City alive and kicking once again, because it's definitely going in that direction.